Richard Solomon continuing with the Bronx Wanderers. So we couldn't stuff an hour of radio into an hour of radio. So now we're in spillover because there was just
naturally
we were just only up to the Frank Sinatra stuff. So we haven't even gotten to like the meat yet. So if you're new to this part, this is Richard Solomon. Got the Bronx Wanderers with me, and
hello.
We were talking about this. I'm very close to my family, and I think that the fact that you guys get to be together and be a family and, create great stuff as a family and tour and spread love and be energetic and really contribute.
We're lucky.
I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I look at guys like Bruno Mars and guys that are my age that are like, playing 10 million people every night and getting paid millions of dollars. Playing that would be cool. Don't get me wrong. But doing this Saturday night with everybody, I look up at the stars and I thank God that I'm with the team that I have. I'm with the family that I have. I have the fans that we have, and I mean, I consider myself luckier. I don't know why.
Well,
do you, Nick? Do you, Joe? I think it's cooler.
Well, see, in Yiddish.
No, yeah, it's great. I mean, listen, there's a certain structure and there's a certain, you get people behind you working with the family, and it's been definitely the ride of my life and something, I've worked towards. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, we also just got Joe Barry prescribed Xanax, so he's a lot more normal.
I gotta say, I mean, the thrill for me is, Vinny said to me, I've got my friends, and I've saw them all through the years. They grew up in the house. They would come over after school, and, I knew this one was a guitar player, this one was playing sax, and, but I didn't really get to know them super tight. And then it was like we just started to, I think we jammed a couple of times, and it was like, this is great. And, I mean, the potential here is just, amazing. And the kids, I say I have 2 kids on stage, but I don't. I have 5 kids on stage, and I would, and I tell their parents I'm like their dad, and I treat them like they're my own. And it's just, and they just work so hard. They never complain. And it's one of those, what can we do to make it better? And Joe started in the band as the sax player, who then moved off to he plays the sax and he plays the keyboards. So then he moved off that, and now he plays the sax, he plays the keyboards, he plays the guitar. And Joe, the other guitar player, Joe Bonasorte, Joe basically plays guitar. Now in the show, Joe plays guitar and he plays drums. Ethan is the bass player, also plays the drums, also plays guitar, also play. It's just
like
this
really talented group of guys.
Amazing thing where people come up to me and go, "Did these kids all go to Juilliard or what?" And then you really stop and talk to all of them one-on-one, and they all look at you and go, "No, we're all self-taught," and they just work so hard at their craft. I mean, Joe Barry's building guitars now.
Wow.
I'm actually doing. I don't know if you heard me. I'm doing it as we speak.
So Vinny, I got to ask you.
I heard a screwdriver before, but I didn't want to say anything.
The Richard Solomon model.
So Vinny, I got to ask. Do you call Shirley Jones for advice? If you get all these kids on stage.
Oh my God! It's like, did you drive the bus, or did you have somebody drive the bus? And
well, now we have Google cars, so.
Yeah. So, but it really is. I mean, we are the Partridge Family. I mean, I literally, this is not, and I'm not complaining. I'm looking up saying I thank everything I have, but I mean, my schedule for this week was to get to a show on Saturday night, and I literally left on Thursday night at 10 o'clock. I got to Chicago at 2 o'clock the next afternoon. And that night I was invited out to go out with Mike Piazza and Tommy Lasorda for a big event in the city. And, I mean, I would kill not to not go, and my eyes were coming out of my head, and I said to them, I really can't. I haven't got to bed yet, and I've got to go to bed. Went to sleep, wake up. We go into rehearsals the next day. We do a meet and greet in the afternoon. We do the show on Saturday night, and then we do the meet and greet after the show, which basically we got out of the theater, I'm going to say, about 1 o'clock. I dropped the kids off at the hotel by 2 a.m., and I left and drove through the night with Nick. We drove back to New Jersey, 13 hours, and we got home Sunday afternoon, probably about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
He's a nut. He's a complete road warrior nut.
Went to bed and woke up, sometime this morning, and it's one of those, it's what we do, and I look at the agents a lot of times. I mean, 2 weeks from now is a prime example of agents that think you're somebody when you're not. And the answer is, on Friday night, the 20th, we are playing in Baltimore. So the plan right now is we're going to go down on the 19th, sleep over, wake up, go to sound check, and do the job for Friday night in Baltimore. But what they don't know is on Saturday, the following night, we're playing in Chicago. And it's an 8 o'clock show, and which means that after the Baltimore show, at around midnight, we'll drive through the night and get to Chicago the next day, probably around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 1 o'clock, take a nap for about 3 or 4 hours, and go and knock out the show in Chicago. And then this is where I have Nick on the phone with you, so I could have you yell at Nick with me. What I would like to do is sleep over that night and drive back the following day. Whereas Nick says, "Come on, Dad, I'll help you. Let's go home right now." And so he'd make me drive the Saturday night home, so that he's home in time to watch the Patriots.
So I have a question with all those rock songs about the road. The Allman Brothers said the road goes on forever, and Bob Seger had Turned the Page, and I guess the Grateful Dead had Truckin'. What's your road song? What's your road song?
Tell them about Six Man Song Band, Dad.
Well, we did for a while. We had a song which was a really, really good song. Cashman and West wrote the original song for what was going to be the Partridge Family theme, and it was called Six Man Song Band. And it really was a good tune. And, the music business is what it is. Wes Farrell, who was the producer of the TV show, and Tony Romeo, who worked with us for a long time, were not the guys that wrote the tune, did not have the publishing on the tune. And if it's the theme song to a show, you're going to always get paid no matter what. They turned around and they put together Come On, Get Happy, and because they would then get 100% of the money. And so Six Man Song Band never became the theme song that it was supposed to be. So it just kind of sat on a shelf for all these years. And, we kind of did it. And really that is exactly what it is. Next day you're on the road. You don't know where you've been. You're in a restaurant. You think it's the one you were at last night. But again, I always stop and say, coming from that, middle-class background where my dad was a construction worker and my mother, did sewing for my aunt's dress shop for Adele Simpson, which was a big designer back in the 60s. My parents worked all day long, and, my dad was out at 6 o'clock in the morning. And, so when I see I'm in a hotel sleeping and the kids are at a pool till 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I say,
somebody's got to do it.
I say, I say we've got a really good life and we've got a really charmed life. And you know what? If I have to drive 20 hours, that's okay. This is, people come out. I told them.
Yeah, we have to be the hardest working band in the land. That is the deal. Because something great eventually has to happen.
The formula that we're using the Leonard Skinner formula, where the record labels don't want to know you, the big time promoters don't want to know us, and we're just going to keep working. And by doing 225 dates a year, no matter what, people constantly are walking up to the promoters of big shows and big venues going, hey, why don't you have these guys? Never heard of them. Why don't you have these? Never heard of them. By about the 50th fan asking them, why don't you hire these guys? These people are starting to break down now and go, all right, who the heck are you guys? And the next thing you know, we're working in this monster venue that Ringo's in next week, and Paul Anka's in the week after, and Tom Jones right after him. And we're playing these venues now. And it really is the formula of don't stop working. Just
and it
keep
is
working.
Thanks to the fan base. Because without them, it's nothing.
They're incredible.
So I got to
They're
ask,
incredible.
what when you're on the road and doing all that driving and traveling, what do you listen to?
Nothing.
Ah,
Absolutely
Wait, I'll say it
nothing.
again.
On the radio.
Nothing. And if they go to put the radio on, I go to shoot their fingers. I have my
Dad will
staple.
listen to the Bee Gees. He'll listen to We Love Bread. I love David Gates. He's awesome. We listen to a lot of McCartney.
I just brought Paul McCartney's remastered version of Tug of War, which I loved, and I
We've
played
been
that
listening
this
to that.
whole weekend.
I make Dad listen to Radiohead and
Kill me.
OK Go and all the crazy bands that I love today. And Joe Barry makes us listen to his stuff. He listens to like cool. What do you listen to? Like cool, like jazz and out there stuff. You listen
Very out there.
very out there.
On my headphones.
Yeah, but we listen to everything because we have such a huge array, a vast array of guys that come from a million different musical backgrounds.
Right.
The eclectic mix that we have between us is pretty wild. 1 minute you're going from the Bee Gees, the next to Metallica,
Old Blue Eyes is
the
back.
next to
I'm putting on
Pantera.
Old Blue Eyes is back. Or we had worked with Dina Martin for a while, which was a real thrill for me. I mean, she's just sweetest lady out there. And I was a big Dean Martin fan, and getting to hear her up close tell me all stories about Dad. It's like, oh my God, she's just calling him Dad, and it was
Unbelievable.
just the best.
Yeah, crazy, really cool.
so
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this to Vinny. Do you miss the old kind of radio and
Yes.
the record stores?
Yeah, there is the record business that I grew up in no longer exists. WABC. For my New York listeners, WMCA.
The good guys.
The good guys. These, and then even when CBS FM started on FM. These were iconic stations that they would play top 40 radio. When top 40 was, you knew what the top 40 songs were in America. And I go back to the days where you would go to E.J. Corvettes.
Yeah.
And, E.J. Corvettes would have like a stack against the wall of little slots, and the 45 records 1 to 40 would be in. And you could buy the record that you just heard on WABC. And it really was, you really kind of had a grasp on what's going on out there in the music business. And now with, everybody's a star on YouTube, and every artist is kind of releasing their own stuff. It's just not, you have your mega big labels, and you have your 5 or 6, staple stars that are just, they're all phenomenal. I'm a big fan when I listen to Katy Perry and Lady Gaga and, Britney Spears. They're great. They're just, and you hear their stuff and you go, this is great.
But they don't write their stuff. And that's why it's so harsh.
It doesn't matter. It's good
harsh.
music. It's really good
harsh.
music. And
written by the same guy.
Well, what's interesting is I remember, because I could relate. I remember buying albums for either $2.99 or $3.99 at Corvettes, because it was like $3.99, but if it was on sale, it was $2.99. And I remember buying albums like War Child and Spitfire and just great stuff. Couldn't wait to get it home. And then, you put it on the turntable, and even though you didn't see anything, you stared at the thing spinning around. And, because it didn't do anything. And yet, sometimes they had posters.
And you held this beautiful 12-inch picture with all the writing on the back, and it was artwork for its day.
And the lyrics.
It was great artwork. And you think of some of the album covers that were just, iconic covers, the Sgt. Pepper's cover. These were iconic pieces of artwork, and it really was, just a great, great time. And it's just, now it's reduced to a little CD, folder.
Well, Thick as a Brick had like a newspaper in it. Remember the original Thick as a Brick, and Sticky Fingers had like a real zipper on it. These were wild concepts. You are listening to Taking Care of Business on 88.1 WCWP, WCWP.org, and TCBRadio.com. This is Richard Solomon, got the Bronx Wanderers with me. You know, growing up and I guess being a little bit older, in age, I remember one of the best things to do is go to Tower Records and just walk around and just look at all the stuff. And you can kill like 2 or 3 hours there just being mesmerized by, what should I buy?
It's a cool story. There's in New York, there's a store called House of Oldies, and it's on Carmine Street. And it's one of those things where every record ever recorded is in that store. And if he doesn't have it, he can get it for you. And there are stores like that across the country. We work in Las Vegas a lot. And there's a store out there. As a matter of fact, it was on either American Restoration or the Pawn Stars, where they go in the record store to try and get some records and stuff. And it's called Wax Tracks. And the guy that runs that store is Richie Wax Tracks. And he called me up about a month ago, and he says to me, "You're never going to believe it." I go, "What happened?" He goes, "I got a phone call from Caesar's Palace that Elton John wanted to come over and look in the store, but he wanted to know if I can close the store so he could really get into it and walk around." And he closes the store. He says that on Sunday I'll close the store. Close the store. And Elton went through the entire, it's a house, literally it's a house, where in each bedroom are categories of music.
Wow.
And he wound up, he said he spent about $10,000 in vinyl. He's such a big fan, and that he wanted all these records that he had as a kid and that he didn't know how to get his hands on.
Wow.
And he just said he's now like one of my best customers. And I mean, it's just those days, they just don't exist. I mean, we lived and died. I mean, Monday morning to get your copy of Billboard, Cashbox, and Record World, just to know, what the top 10 was for the week, and did we crack the top 40, and how's our albums doing, and how's this record doing? And it's just, I'm sure it's out there now in some form for the labels that are out there now, but Cashbox is gone.
It's tough.
Record
It's all
World is
websites
gone.
now.
Well,
it's all websites.
Well, the other thing that's kind of a real loss was the radio DJ personality who actually got to ad-lib, tell stories, intro things. In fact, on the 50th anniversary of our radio station, WCWP, they actually had old air checks of different people, especially like, Ron Lundy and Harry Harrison. And when you listen to what people were allowed to do, they talked about all kinds of stuff. They added all kinds of information. Great. It was unbelievable because now all you get is truly formula, which is, traffic and weather on the ones and this and that. And they don't even announce the songs.
Our record on, I think the album you have, we have a song called I Love Rock and Roll. And that's a song actually that Dad wrote. And in the middle of that record, Dad features all the old DJs. Like Cousin Brucey and all those guys on the actual
Jack,
record.
Ron Lundy. I used everybody. Harry Harrison, Ron Lundy.
So that was
Bruce,
Cousin
Brucey,
to all those guys.
I thought, and I feel the same way you did. That I just wanted to do a tribute to them, and I thought that it would be the concept originally was we had done the song Talkin' Baseball, and I thought it was really cool. We did the original song Willie Mickey and the Duke, and we put it out. And instead of it being embraced by all the teams, everybody was mad that why didn't you put this guy's name and why didn't you put that guy's name in? And what it wound up doing was the one record spawned 24 records, where at that time there was, I think, 24 major league teams. And we wound up doing 12 of the National and 12 of the American. And we wound up having 25 versions of the one song. And we just mentioned, for the Yankees, we did all Yankee players. For the Mets, it was all Mets players, and it just became this thing. So I saw how radio took to that, and I saw how everybody took to that, and I said, wow, this would be really cool to do a thing with the DJs. And the funny thing was, I didn't, anticipate it, but I got the same reaction. So I have Cousin Brucey, Wolfman Jack, Ron Lundy, Harry Harrison, Jack Spector, Murray the K, everybody, Clay Cole. I mean, I put everybody I could think of that was anybody in this version, and I start getting calls from like Pittsburgh radio.
How come you didn't use this guy?
Yeah. How come you didn't use that guy? And the cool thing was, so now I started sending out a generic version of it where the guys in those markets can plug their own little air check in. Hey, this is so-and-so from WV, and they did. And so it was a really neat little thing that just, it worked.
Yeah. So we need a Rich Solomon one now. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Right.
And there it is.
Well, what's interesting is, for just trivia, if you go to my YouTube channel, which is, if you go to YouTube, TCB Radio, WCWP, one of my guests, was Cousin Brucey. And he was so gracious and so wonderful to talk to. And here's a guy that I grew up listening to and admiring. And here I am.
Sounds great. I mean, you hear him today, you feel like you're 15.
Yeah. And we talked, and it was just so cool because, here I am, eyeball to eyeball, elbow to elbow, taking pictures with someone who I guess it was partly responsible for me wanting to be in the radio.
An icon in your industry.
Yeah. And it's so great. And look, I actually luckily have met a lot of interesting rock people. I've interviewed people from the Gin Blossoms and Styx, and Kazim Russell from Utopia, Joan Jett, Meatloaf, and Blue Oyster Cult. And he was really cool. And he also talked a lot about the traveling. I had Ricky Byrd from the the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band. So I love this stuff, and I try to at least bring back on my radio show some elements of what radio has lost in the commercial world. I guess because we're commercial free.
So we're out one night at Sirius Radio, and I get again, I'm clueless. I'm from the old days, and I just so I go in and we're doing the Wise Guy show with Vinny Pastore, and there's like four typical wise guys that them all, and Cousin Brucey comes walking by, and he pokes his head in, and they must have said the F word about 10 times in front of him, trying to get him to curse. And I'm like my jaw's on the floor. Like, I don't realize that you could curse on satellite radio.
Right. That's why Howard Stern
went there. I can't believe that they're saying these words, and much less I can't believe Cousin Brucey's having a heart attack at the door and nobody's helping him. And he's like, I can't use that language. Well, cousin, and he ran down the hallway. And I looked at them, and they looked at me, and they said, "Dude, relax. You could use that kind of language on the show."
That's
unreal.
Funny.
That's funny.
But we got to do the 40th anniversary for WCBSFM. We did their party for them. And we got to hang out with Joe Causey and who was the other guy? Broadway.
Bill Shannon, and it was great.
Yeah, Broadway Bill. I mean, I didn't get to grow up with the cool DJs that you guys grew up with, but as far as radio personalities, that was a cool little thing that we got to do that one night. That was kind of cool.
For the younger people in the band, you guys, go on the internet and actually listen to like air checks.
What is this thing you call the internet?
go listen to the air checks of some of the guys, and you'll see maybe some station before it went off air or something like that. They'll do like the last half hour of programming or whatever. It's been captured in a couple of places. I think some station in Philadelphia went from rock to something else, and they had all their old DJs come back and do like one last hurrah. And some of that's been captured. And when you really listen to that, you really see that at one point in time, radio truly was magical. It really, really was.
Yeah.
And there's something kind of lost in what it became. Not that it's horrible.
There was nothing like growing up and being at someplace like Jones Beach and or Coney Island, and just all the different radios that were on. And as you're walking from section to section, you're hearing the voice that you know and the music that you know. And it's just, it's not like that now.
As the kids, we're lucky that we have guys like you and Dad that give us this sense of culture and sense of history of how cool and great things were. And that's the crappy part about growing up today, is that our generation doesn't have that. And that's why we're so lucky that we get to be surrounded by, guys like you with a real radio show, guys like all of Dad's friends, doing all these package shows with all these greats. You know, it's a whole different world.
Just in the last 2 weeks alone, we've worked with Paul Revere and the Raiders, the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, Gary Puckett and the Union Gap,
Peter Noon.
Who else did we do?
Peter
Gary
Noon.
Lewis and the Playboys, and Peter Noon was phenomenal, and I mean,
it's wild stuff.
Jay and the Americans, I mean, they're just great guys. They're just good guys, and just you hear them talk about their years on the bus and their stories, and you just go, wow, I can't believe, I listened to your record. The guys from Port Revere and the Raiders came over to us and said, man, we loved you guys. We're like fans of you guys now. And I go, man, I was watching you guys, when they had their show on Saturdays on WEC. And I was like, I love you guys. I'm fans of you guys.
It's a different world today, sadly.
It is. Well,
and it's thanks to guys like you that keep the real art alive.
Well, thank you.
And that's why we're honored to be a part of this show.
Well, thank you. One of the things I did that was sort of interesting, which is the flip side of the oldies, is I don't know if you guys know Michael Epstein, who's known as Epi. He ran my father's place in Roslyn, which was it was sort of like the Bottom Line was and the Stone Pony was, but only in Roslyn. And he had Springsteen come in to open for the Paul Winter Consort, if you could believe that, and like 1971. I mean, you see pictures. There's a book that they wrote. He was one of the co-authors with the guy Steve Rosenfield, and I know Steve, and that's how I met Epi, and so I became friends with Epi. And Epi produces a lot of great shows where he has people like Denny Lane do like a solo show in Glen Cove. And what we did is Epi was very, very big with WLIR, which was sort of the alternative music in its day in the 80s. And so what we did is I brought him into the studio, and he brought all these CDs, And what we did was we just sat down and played 2 hours of just newer music. From people that really aren't so I try to cover the Beatles, I try to cover you guys, try to cover the oldies, but we also try to be a little wacky because I'm really trying to add something back to radio just so that it's there, because you guys are keeping the flame alive. Because let's face it, that flame really needs to, like the Olympic torch, it needs to be carried from city to city because it is a special flame. It is.
Yeah, the amazing thing that we used to always say in the record business, sitting around in a conference room, a hit is a hit is a hit. If it's a good record, it's a good record. It's going to stand the test of time. And, we were looking for a song we had an artist called Dean Friedman. And I was like, what would be a good tune for him? And this was, around 1980. And so we came up with Let's Hang On. And Dean did, the Four Seasons song, Let's Hang On. And it became like a little minor hit again. And it was always that formula that a hit is a hit. And so when we get to go out and play what we play, a lot of times we'll get, I don't know how that's going to play in Montana. I don't know how that's going to play down in Arkansas. I don't know how this is going to go over in Texas. You know what? Everywhere we go, it works because the music is just good music, and people really love it. I mean, Chicago, they are just the most amazing, wonderful people to us. And it was the promoter that told me years ago, he said, listen to me, we either have oompa bands here or heavy metal bands here. Somebody like you comes in and does Dion and Frankie Valli and, some stuff from the 70s or whatever. This is like a breath of fresh air to them. And it all of a sudden just clicked. And, so now we're there, and we're very big there. And it's, same thing with Milwaukee. I mean, we do that whole Midwest little pocket, Iowa, Milwaukee, we do so well there. And it's because, good music is good music.
Here's my story. It's sad but true. It's about a girl that I once knew. She took my love, then ran around with every single guy in town. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hooray. Hip, hooray. Da la 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 la. Hip, hooray.
You are listening to Taking Care of Business on 88.1 WCWP, WCWP.org, and TCBRadio.com. This is Richard Solomon, got the Bronx Wanderers with me. And, well, you guys really have the good music because there's so much energy. And, I mean, you guys really pour it out. One of the things no, seriously, I won't name any names, but I remember going to some shows at some venues in Long Island, and you had all your hopes up, and then all of a sudden, after 48 minutes, all right, thank you, good night. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, wait. Or this other group that they said, oh, and we'll be doing autographs, in the parking lot. Right. And it was like after 52 minutes, and I'm like, oh, wait, I slept, I waited online, and all this for 48 minutes or 52 minutes. I mean, come on. And yet,
major. I mean, we saw that when we started.
I really
want
to say
on stage. Go ahead, you say it.
We did a showcase in Las Vegas, and the thing with the showcase is you're in front of 100 buyers, and you have to get up, and in 10 minutes you got to make them want to hire you, and you play your best stuff or whatever. So there's a real big name band that's playing the showcase, and they have a signature tune. And they're playing 5 minutes worth of, I don't know what they're doing. And they played the opening intro to their signature tune. Just like a guitar riff, 2-second deal. And they stopped. And they looked at the audience and said, if you want to hear that tune, you have to hire us. And they walked off. The buyers were so mad and so incensed that they were all screaming, nobody hired them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's come on, man.
And a lot of other times we actually saw bands when we first started out doing the package shows because we couldn't do our own show alone yet. I saw guys on stage looking at their watches, going is this over yet?
Yeah.
And I looked at Dad, and I remember saying, I never, ever wanted to feel like that on stage. And the biggest compliment we get from people is, it doesn't matter if there's 5 people in the audience or 5,000 people in the audience. You guys just look like you're having the time of your lives. And the truth is we are, because we play every show like it's our last. We're not a major famous act. The fact that we're up playing in front of 800 to 1,000 people is a dream come true for the young guys in the group like me. I know Dad's been doing it for years, but it's a dream, and to be up there to say that, you say that we pour our hearts out. That's literally what we're doing, because we love what we're doing. I love what I'm doing.
Look,
I love it.
It even shows in this show, in what we're doing now. Just talking about, there's so much passion. There's so much passion. And great stories.
It's just a lot of it is, how lucky are we? I mean, when people say to me, man, you're so lucky you're playing with your kids, and I just look back and go, believe me, I know. I do. I know. And we are. And it's just, I got to watch them grow up, and I got to watch them where, oh my God, how are we going to get through this job? We need 2 hours of music or 90 minutes of music, and we only know 60. And to the point now where it's 4 hours? Yeah, no problem. They carry me. And it's just amazing the way this whole thing is kind of
we believe in each other, and that's the main thing. We believe in each other. And we love each other.
Our attitude towards it is kind of what separates us from being another nostalgia act. The nostalgia act, they're thinking back to, the 50s, the 60s were our heyday. We approach every concert like a
today's
rock
our
band.
day.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very interesting perspective.
This is our day.
Well, yeah. Well, in many ways, it's kind of sad to think that your best days are behind you.
Exactly.
I mean,
and that's what we sell to the audience.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. And one of the my friend Ray Dariano is just a wonderful guy, and anybody out there, look him up. He was the guy that broke all Elton John's records. He was the head of promotion for MCA Records in its heyday. He did Kiss. He moved over. He became the head of Casablanca Records for a while. Donna Summer, Kiss. I mean, just every major act in the 70s, he was had his hand in. And he constantly says to me, "Are you enjoying the ride?" And I constantly say to him, "No, what ride?" Because I'm so worried that it's going to end tomorrow. And I'm so focused on, okay, so if you go on the internet and see our comments on Saturday night, people say this was the best show ever. We've seen you guys 8 or 9 times. This was your best show ever. So instead of enjoying that moment, I'm now stressing over, oh my God, we're going to be back there New Year's Eve.
How do we make it better?
So what can I do for New Year's Eve to bring 2 or 3 new things to the table that we didn't do last week that make it better, that people say, oh no, tonight was better than that night. And that pushing and that constant striving for never to rest on your laurels, to just keep making it better and better and better, is what I'm after. I mean,
it's a major theme to us.
Wow.
How do you make it better?
But that puts a lot of pressure on yourself,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of friction in the house because we're constantly, it's always on. It's never off. A lot of the bands that are out there, everybody goes to their own home and they go home, and that's it. Whereas with us, we come home and we're still on. And we're still talking about last night and the night before, and what are we going to do next week, and what can we do, and then my wife throws her 2 cents in the mix, and then the next thing you know, it's an all out, where we're really, having these discussions. I mean, we kind of scream. I'm trying to make it nice, but
keyword discussion.
It gets into, like the other night, we opened up with this Back to the Future thing because it was topical, and we opened up with The Power of Love, which again, that's not an oldie. And it's not something you're going to see at an oldie show. And then, we did go into The Wanderer after that. So, we jumped right into an oldie that but it was good. So now my question is, well, it was such a good opening. We're playing this week on a package oldie show. Can we open with that? And then, you get to, my wife saying, well, it's an oldie show. You shouldn't do that. It's not good. Yeah, but you know what? It's different. And I want to be different, and I don't just want to come out with, oh, okay, here we go again. Danny Aiello is going to introduce us, and it's going to be a Bronx tale, and boom, we're going to bang into The Wanderer. It's like, no, it's got to be different, and it's got to be good, and it's got to be this. And then the next thing you know, we're all kind of at each other.
But then we look at Dad and we go, but yeah, dude, but look at Tony Orlando. He's doing the same show that he did 20 years ago yesterday. And then Dad looks at us and goes, yeah, but we're not Tony Orlando.
Well, look,
so we need to keep making this better.
One of the things that they say that makes radio different from, say, an iPod or one of those MP3 players is that no matter how many songs you have on that iPod, it's the same songs being reshuffled. But the thing about radio is you really never know what's really going to be next. Even though there's formula stations and, they have their playlists, you don't really know what's going to be next. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I try to do is I actually don't really have a format to the show, to my show. You'll have,
you have us on it, clearly.
I've had, Lyme's disease and then the Bronx Wanderers and then Dr. Ruth and then Cousin Brucey and then, the Nassau County District Attorney. So you really have no idea who's going to be on.
Each day for you is a show. Each day for you is the same thing.
Right. And the truth is we never really say what's coming up. So people actually have no idea when we hit the air. They have truly no idea. And not only that, sometimes they don't even know until the end of one show that there's going to be another week of what they just heard until I just spring it on them at the end and go, wow, this is so cool. We got to do more of this. So, so I appreciate that.
You got to keep it fresh. I mean, that's what it is. You got to keep it fresh.
Well, you got to be a knuckleball pitcher. That's what they say. Because when
exactly right. And how awesome was that documentary they came out with, Knuckleball? That was awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's interesting.
Love that.
In what I do for a living is I'm an attorney, and sometimes I'm actually hired professionally to take depositions, which is basically civilized interrogation. And one of the things that I'm sort of known for is I'm kind of a knuckleball pitcher. Everybody prepares the witnesses, says, all right, look, they're going to ask your name, your background, and blah, blah, blah. And I start at the middle, and I shake things up by, throwing things at people that they don't expect, as the first document. And they're like, well, wait. And then sometimes I'm real fast-paced, sometimes a little slow. So I'm very unpredictable. So it's hard to prepare. Even when I have a case where I'm going to be taking 10 depositions in a row, the 9th deposition never looked like number 1. And they can't prepare, and you don't want them. That's what... so I understand that. There's actually a business logic application to all this stuff too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So let's do this. This was unbelievable. We're going to do one segment. We're going to wrap it up here because this was truly unbelievable. You guys rock it out. Do you want to talk about any future projects or announcements or spill anything? Anything in development that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm staring at a picture of 2 skeletons staring at a phone. And it's the sound guy and myself. The caption is Gil and Yo Vinny waiting for the phone call from Las Vegas to happen or not.
All right, so let's we're going to end here, but we're going to do one more segment, but that's going to be something super special and a super secret, like the Manhattan Project. So for this segment of radio and or YouTube or whatever, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your precious time.
Thank you.
Great stories
so
and making rock and roll fun again.
I thought love was only true in fairy tales. Meant for someone else, but not for me. Love was out to get me. That's the way it seemed. A disappointment haunted all my dreams. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer. I'm not a trace. A doubt in my mind. I'm in love. I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. I thought love was more or less a given thing. Seems the more I gave, the less I got. What's the use of trying? All you get is pain. When I needed sunshine, I got rain. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer. I'm not a trace. A doubt in my mind. I'm in love. I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. Out to get me, that's the way it seemed. A disappointment haunted all my dreams. Then I saw her face, and now I'm a believer, and not a trace, doubt in my mind. I'm in love, I'm a believer, I couldn't leave her if I tried. Then I saw her face, and now I'm a believer.
All right, that wraps it up for this week. Thanks for listening. Keep it here at 88.1 FM. Our email, of course, is TCBRadioWCWP@yahoo.com. And our website, again, is TCBRadio.com. Thanks for listening. See you soon.